How you doing? Hi, Donald and Javier and Joseph. Let me get my microphone squared away here. Okay. Okay, no. How you guys doing? Okay, let me ask you: is the sound okay? Can you hear me all right? Is the video okay? We've got a hi Rohit, hi Dominic, AFG. How are you? Yes, I know. I want to talk about that a little. Hi Junior, Rohit, Mark. Hi Mark. Oh, Slab Sides 45. Joseph. Again, there you go, Joseph. Sounds okay. Good. That was what I was worried about. Sound and video good. Okie doke. Lots of stuff going on right now. Uh, First of all, the some of the watches that I've been buying or trying to buy have suddenly whoop, up they went in price. And these were some Donald Roth watches, and there was another one I had my eye on, and it disappeared. Hi, William. Hi, Thomas. Uh, so, hi, Will. I don't want to miss anybody. um, anyway, so I there was ones that just have been around for a long time, and they're from the early 2000s and the late 90s, right in there, and they're disappearing really quickly. Um, the other thing, hi Roar the Tiger, how you doing? And so I don't know. I just want to sort of get some feedback from you guys. Have you seen anything greatly different, or any sort of little lights? There are a few, I think, and I think there's going to be a few more. We'll see what happens. Um, so anybody? What? No? Everybody's reading each other now. Okay, no. So the other news that I got a little blurb this morning. PM friend in London sent it, and it was to the effect that uh, the Sandoz Family Foundation is selling Parmigiani, and Parmigiani is like, I thought, oh no, how's that going to work? But they're going to sell everything. Okay. The Sandoz Family Foundation has been losing money on Parmigiani. They they treated it sort of in an old fashioned way. In the old fashioned way, they used to have, you'd have an artist, or in this case a watchmaker of great talent, and then they would be a, like I said, they would foster them, they would sponsor them. In other words, they'd keep them going so they could make more of these great things. So looking around, lucky inexpensive finds are long gone. Yeah, I know. I found out. I watched them go away. Um, they will be selling the entire watchmaking division. So I mean, there's like, you have Parmigiani, Fleurier, Vaucher, the movement maker, Alto Coppa, they make the balance wheel and the hairspring. There's a, and then they have a case making, they have a dial making, and then they have another one called Irwin, I think, Ewin, and they make the little the wheels and all of the other movements. And the interesting thing about it, it's sort of like getting a watch company and a kit. And so I'm very curious on how that's going to go. And so we'll see. So that explains the wacky Parmi dial Sandoz LSD. Yeah. Well, they have the Sandoz Family Foundation is probably in a sort of in a double whammy. Their pharmaceutical arm is probably their best. They're probably making the most money from that. Their other one that they've had for a while, I mean, that's been another money maker, has been they have a hotels and tourism business, and but that got smacked really hard beginning with the pandemic, and it's not out of the out of the woods yet on that. So they've really been getting hit pretty hard. Um, Parmigiani is one of those companies that has been making really excellent watches. They've won a whole stack of awards the last few years, but for some reason they haven't been popular. Now, for a collector, the good part about that is that we've been able to get them at some really great prices. And but I so you know, Mark, can we afford to purchase Parmigiani? I don't. We're having trouble affording a watch, let alone the whole company. I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of speculation about who might pick it up. Thomas, what do you think? Hey, by the way, Thomas, you guys having the punters today? Hi, Javi. Marco, hi, Marco. Once sold, say goodbye to the quality of bang for the buck. That may be true, but see, the good thing about Parmigiani, or at least that whole vertical organization, they all have good quality. Um, I know some companies that I can't say who have been buying Alto Paca, uh, Alto Calpa. God, it was these names. Alto Capa hairsprings for years because they're really excellent ones. I mean, you have for independents that are selling them outside of their neighborhood, so to speak. You have H. Moser with the Strassmann hairspring that a lot of companies buy that. The only one that anybody has given notice about is MB&F. And H. Moser, they're making 50, 60,000 at least hairsprings a year of the Strassmann hairspring, and yet they're selling maybe 3,000 watches a year. Now that may have gone up, that may have changed because they seem to have sort of tagged on to certain things, and a lot of their watches have run out. But to me, I'm going to keep a. There are some. I would love to have certain Parmigianis. The I already have a hemisphere, but I've always really liked their retrograde hemisphere, the toric version of it. But it doesn't make any sense for me to have two hemispheres. So, of course, it doesn't make a lot of sense financially to be a watch collector either. Pre-owned will still be a value, and they always a terrible buy new at MSRP. Yeah, it's true, Rick. Hi, Earthiacus. I hope I got that right. Um, Once sold, say goodbye to the quality and bang for the buck. Yeah, I know what you mean by that. Um, what did Roman say? He's a dealer, so yeah, we trust dealers. I don't know. It's one of those things. We'll see. We'll see what we see. Maybe something will happen. I sort of doubt it, but maybe they'll figure out some way to make a lot of money. But they've been losing a lot of money every year on that. That was true with a lot of other companies. One of the ones that seemed to have a working business model almost from the get-go was FP Journe. I don't know if they ran into some kind of financial tight spot, but take a look at Lang and Heim. Here you have these fabulous watches, but they couldn't make ends meet somehow, and so I think that was one of the reasons that Marco Lang left, which I think is just sort of crazy. But now that they're becoming really popular, the Marco is making his own. He's still making watches, and they're selling out as soon as he makes them. But they're very high end. I think Daniel Roth has done the same thing. He is making these very high end tourbillons, and has like maybe makes two or three a year, and doesn't have a lot of other hassle to worry about. Hey, Robert, how you doing? Um, okay, all right. The punters. Okay, so just I was checking with the punters. No punters this week. Um, okay, let's see. Is there a Parmigiani plant or watch factory in Switzerland? They're all in Switzerland. Everything they have is in Switzerland. Parmigiani Fleurier is in Fleurier. One of I think the town may be La Chaux de Fonds, but I'm not positive. There's so many in La Chaux de Fonds, it's hard to say. But they have, um, like I said, they have the Vaucheur, and Vaucheur is, I don't know how they're doing. I know there a lot of people have when I say people, I mean little watch companies that want to have a high quality movement without, having to start up a whole watchmaking process. They can't get ETAs, and people were sort of sticking their nose up at those anyway. But by purchasing, let's say, 25, I think, Vaucheurs, they were in good shape because then they could make 25 watches and put together the case and the dial and so forth, and really have a very high quality watch. And some companies, I think that one of the things that I saw that's coming to the Watch Time show is who is it? El Laurent. There are, I guess they're called Laurent now, but I they're owned by Festina, and they used to be one of the really great watchmakers around the turn of the century. And but like everyone else, they sort of got knocked on the head in the quartz crisis, and never seemed to really, even though they were making great watches, then they started putting in cheap movements and not telling anybody about it, and so they're sort of, I don't know what they're going to do, but I think some of them did use Vaucheur movements, which gave them a lot more credibility. In fact, there are still far too many mid high-end watch brands. Not all will survive. Oh man, I tell you, they're all over the place. I agree. Not all of them are going to make it. There's a lot there's a lot of competition for them, but there's not that much kind of really high level watchmaker talent who wants to go to work for some kind of 9 to 5 job when they can do probably as well or better working as an independent and doing what they want to do, or at least have some kind of control. But they're all always sort of on a, I think I was talking about this morning, they're take one of those logs, and then you have a board across it and you're trying to stay level. I think it's a very tough business, especially if you want to make a living. If you're just having fun, that's different. Hey Warren, how you doing? Okay, let's see. In the bicycle business, brands from low to high end are made in the same factory in China. Is it sustainable that the watch business uses standalone plants that only make for one brand? No, that's a good point, because I think here's what happens. I mean, you take, for example, the precision engineering, which is sort of the mechanical making part of H. Moser. And they're turning out these Strassmann hairsprings. The way I think that they hold all of that together is most of the ones they sell are outside of H. Moser. Now, those on the outside who are buying them are, they have a wonderful hairspring, and it's made of niobium and titanium and maybe some other stuff. But the point is that those things are extremely expensive to set up the mechanisms and everything else. And given the number of watches that H. Moser sells around, you're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 a year. That's exactly right. It's very hard to sustain that. Okay, update on the retrograde project. Yeah, this is, I tried to make a little thing for discussion today. Now, um, this looks a lot like the 6911, but there's some differences. There was big screw here, and there's some other things. But let me bring your attention to this. Now, what they're talking about putting in this uh, that make it doable and affordable for us is what we talked about, the 6667 AHC 6667 movement. And once they make the modifications, it'll be a different movement. I mean, they'll have a new name for it. We'll have to think of a neat name. Anyway, here's the thing about this. Now, oh man, okay, right here is where the crown's going. Okay, if you flip it over this way or something like that, or maybe up like that, whatever. Anyway, but the crown's on this side. And on the other side over here, see these uh, either 3 or 4 rubies. This makes up the gear train right here. And what I was hoping is that perhaps there could be a bridge right here with them. Now the problem is if you're going to have a bridge like that, you need something to anchor. And you can see these anchor screws, and they've got this big plate out here. But instead of having a big plate, I don't know, something else that would, so you could see you could see more of this. But again, now they're going to have to add the small seconds in here somewhere. Let me see, where would that be? I think it would probably be right around here. If I'm seeing it right, I think this is about here's 6 o'clock down here. And so this would be 7 and 8 o'clock. And anyway, so you have and then this is the back, by the way, and then coming out the other side is where you're going to have your posts and so forth for the 3 hands. And we're talking about an hour hand, minute hand, and a small second. But I think they were going to put the small second in here somewhere, and of course it's right next to the wheel train. What I'm hoping for, what I'm asking for, is that it would be really cool if we could have like a little thin bridge, and somehow I don't know how you do it, because you do have to have something screwed in for an anchor for these right here, and do it in such a way that it wouldn't be too expensive either to create it or to produce it. That's the big trick. If it's best for them to keep this big plate right here and then simply add the small seconds there, then that would be that. But this is what's under here right now is really and the shape of it and so forth. This is what it's going to look like. Now the problem has been the Fiona Kruger had no dial, and so without a dial, every place that the movement was the body of the watch, and so you have everything really part of the body, and so it was, and especially with the entropy, and chaos was sort of the theme of the watch. The entropy was this explosion, and so you're trying to see where make sense of it as a movement, and it's not very clear at all. On the other hand, if we can see something like this, and this is how they're going to be going into it very closely. I'm not sure what this is right here, the type of plate that is, but I really like it. I mean, it's sort of like almost like a semicircular bridge going out around this way. Anyway, okay, let's see. Okay, Han. Okay, let's see. There you go, Han. Where are we? Okay, let's see. Just one long walk with Alex knackered, so relaxing. All right, David. Let's see. I'd like to sign up for the project. Okay, yeah. This is one of the things that we got to figure out how we're going to do. Um, in order for any of us really to sort of sign on, we've got to have. I sorry about that. One of the things that we're going to have is some kind of clear idea of what's going to be in the movement. All right. Now, right now, this is simply a mock-up that I did based on what they told me, and as far as I'm concerned, I like it just fine. But they would, if they could do this without jacking up the price, I think that would be very cool. Okay, how big is the movement? Well, that's a very good question, and I think I'm trying to remember. I think it's around 30 millimeters. I think I could be wrong, but that's something else we got to find out about. We definitely had asked, I'm very clear about this, is that we wanted it for a 39 millimeter case. And so it can't be too big. I mean, you don't have a 38 millimeter movement going into a 39 millimeter case. You need a lot more room than that. Oh yeah, Nelson. Yeah, yeah. You can. Anybody can connect up to our Facebook page. That's called Pure Horology. Yeah, you can do that. We've got about, gee whiz, we got about 40 something people there now. But that is something that if once we get the movement, we can just focus on the movement now until we actually have something we can hang on to. Then we have really a lot more freedom because we have a lot more information on what we can do with it. And while we can sort of set out a plan ahead of time with Wooten, Lannon, and Kalin for the cases, and somebody else. Maybe we can get a deal from the case maker for Parmigiani. Hey guys, we can throw a little business your way. Hey John, how you doing? Advice on Thomas Ninchrist watches. Ninchrist is something, John, we're going to have to table that for now, okay? Because we've got these other things we're sort of going through. It's a good thing. I like Ninchrist. He's in fact, he's in Nuremberg. I wish I'd had the time to go see him when I was there a couple of years ago, but I didn't. Okay, let's see what you got. What you got? Make sure you both drink plenty of water. Yes, good idea. What's on the bottom part of your cruise ship T-shirt? It's a secret. it's my I have an interesting what do they call them, travel agent. My travel agent, Fly By Night Travels, they're the ones. No, this is just my. Let me see. Show you there it is. Just a great big old T-shirt, and on the bottom is Holland America. Okay, what you got going here? Forbin, does a key wound movement save anything, like the cost of complexity? Probably, and I'll tell you why. Because they've already have the where'd it go? Let's see. They already have the keyless works already set up in here. Here's where the crown's going to be. I think right here is where the crown is. And so the keyless works, you can see the barrel and stuff, and all the keyless works are going to be down in here. So having a key one, I don't think would save us any money because there's already so much of this has already been done. The idea, remember, was that we wanted to get an established something. Okay, here's something you could put together that would be an Agenor movement, and then just add a small seconds, and Bob's your uncle. And it's not quite that easy, as it turns out. Excuse my memory. What is the expected bottom line price for a watch materializing from this project? What we wanted out of this is no more than $7,500. Okay, or was it Swiss francs? One of the two, but they're pretty close. So that's 7,500 was our top on that, and so we're going to try to. There's two things going on. We want to save money for ourselves, but we can't demand something that is going for the capacity of the people moving it, making it. And you say, look, we want it for X amount. We can't make it for that much. So, but so they know ahead of time, and we'll know ahead of time. Say, look, this thing, just the movement is going to cost X amount, and then we can see about the price of the case and the price of the dial. All of those things are dependent on the movement, the characteristic of the movement. And I think the good thing about it is that with small seconds and no rotor at all, we can have a relatively thin one. I don't think it's going to be this thin, but a thinner watch is a sort of a cooler one, I think. That's me. Maybe it would be this thin. This is one that has an Agenhorn movement in it, and the way they did it for an automatic was to put in let me see if you can see this or not. The way they did it, they put in a micro rotor. The problem with any kind of rotor, and especially a micro rotor, if you put in a micro rotor, you're going to have to make your balance wheel smaller. And I'm hoping to get as big as a balance wheel as we can without, again, interfering with something that would push the cost beyond what we want to have. There are all these things. The interesting thing about this is that we all should learn a lot about the price and cost of watches through this whole exercise. And remember, we started off with sort of a formula of 10 to 1. Okay. $750. No, Thomas, we never said that. All right. $7,500 is what we had. Never 750. There was no way. I think we couldn't even get the movement for that. So anyway, it'd be nice if we could. But I don't think so. Not in this case. Joseph, let me see. His vice versa watch. Okay. All right. Let's see. Excuse my. Okay. What's the expected bottom line price? Okay. What else you guys got? That's really all I have right now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to sort of this is sort of the basics of it. And I'm going to send this to them and ask them and say, is there something we can have like a sort of a nice little bridge here? And if they say we can't do that without significantly jacking up the price because we'd have to do X, Y, and Z, then okay. It's like I think it's sort of like this, is that is the extent to which they can use existing elements in it, the lower the price, because then they're not going to have to go out and have them carved or whatever they do to make them. We'll have them carve them all by hand. Okay, Danny, I want to see the doctor, why the low energy? The micro rotor. All right. Okay, what else do you guys have? Any other questions or possibilities or things you've been thinking of? I don't want to talk about the dial. I would love it if we could have everybody could have their own dial style. All right. And if you want to, you may be able to do that with a cheap dial. But I think if we're going to get a really, to have a watch that we can say, okay, here's the collector's watch that we developed with, really excellent parts here and excellent parts here and excellence all around. Okay, what type of documentation, if any, would be get all of these components? Javier, I'm not sure what you mean by documentation. Um, do you mean the kind of documentation like a technical list of all the parts with all of the everything? One of the things, this is something else that's sort of a little embarrassing, is that most watch companies will go to them and say they'll have all of these diagrams and CAD CAM things and so forth, and saying this is what we want, and and we want to, and then we want the movement for it, and so work with that. And so this is a, I hope that we're sort of treat us as a friendly experiment in that this is something that they can do, that they can afford, with something we can afford. Now, remember, we're talking essentially about a 10 to 1, the manufacturing price times 10 as a sale price. And so if we can cobble this thing together for $7,500, we're talking about what a real watch company would have to sell it for is $75,000. And that includes the advertising and everything that you have to do. And what we're doing now is trying to find a way that we can have affordable watches that sort of is a collector's watch, but yet one that has really excellent elements to it, rather than throwing in a cheap movement or a cheap dial or something about it that is going to cut a corner. Now, having said that, the only kind of corner that really would be cutting would be ones that, gee, would like this. Oh, gee, if we only had a power reserve indicator because it's a hand wound watch, wouldn't that be cool? Yeah, it would be, but it would cost more. So this is like the basic base thing, sort of to get something going with. I have some other ideas for other watches down the line that we can make that will be less complicated than this. But I think that going through this process, we can learn an incredible amount about watches, and so knowing the watches that we buy much better. Um, the case is another big stumbling block. Well, John, I don't see it as a stumbling block, but tell me why you think it's a stumbling block. Would that be in terms of the style of case that people wanted? It's this is something else too. For this to work, I suppose that if somebody said, "Look, I just can't stand that case," you go off and get your own case. You can. Literally. I mean, not. I'm not being facetious or nasty about it. But I'm going to take my ball and go home, kind of thing. But rather, I mean, it's quite possible. I mean, all of us have made watches, that have this one was it's an ant. This one right here, here was a pocket watch, and I tore it up, and of course I broke it eventually, but that's another story. But I got this movement with that looks like it has the kind of lugs that they put on the early pocket watch to make them into wristwatches. Instead, what I did, I took a perfectly good um, pocket watch and took a bunch of stuff off of it so it would fit in here, and it fits like a glove. It fits better than a lot of other things. And so when we talk about cases, we've got flexibility uh, that is, just we got tons of flexibility on that. Yeah, Thomas, I agree. This is for all of us. And here's the other thing. It's also, I think, for the guys who are working with us on this. They usually, the ones they're dealing with, these guys are like Van Cleef and Arpels. They're $1 billion uh, luxury company. And Hermes is, God, they got tons of money. All of these ones that they've worked with, Fabergé, they've made movements for them. We are like not small potatoes, but the eyes of the small potatoes. Um, yeah, 39 millimeter. Yeah, we're pretty well settled on that. Swiss Watch Gang. Okay. All right. All right, Swiss Watch Gang. All right, guys. Well, I'm out of time, and my timekeeper's not here, so I'm late. Anyway, I will any new information. Hader, Raja, all of you other guys, you guys who want to be part of this, just sign up in the Facebook page called Pure Horology. Okay, we have that. We've had some discussions, and we're not going to agree on everything, but none of us should get, like I'm right and everybody else is wrong, including myself, even though we all may think we're right and everyone else is wrong. So this is something, we've got to learn how to cooperate so that we can have something that is for us. Okay, John, thank you. Frying pan time, and I'm going to get in trouble. We got a thunderstorm, so it may go out anyway. All right, everybody, take care.